Jonathan Rees. And Charlie Woodward. Right, so on that basis, we have a successful applicant there of Charlie Woodward.
Thank you.
Okay, now we move to vacancy 2. And I'm just going to repeat the same process. Okay, so round 1. Any votes for vacancy 2 for Dom Cavell? Ian Fetheridge? Anne Wilson? Jonathan Rees? Charlie Woodward, we don't need because Charlie's already a councillor. So, on that basis, we have Jonathan Rees as the successful candidate for vacancy 2. So we now have effectively Charlie Woodward and Jonathan Rees as new members of Brent Knoll Parish.
Again, as I said before, can I thank everyone who's put their names forward. It is really good that there's so many people who actually want to come forward and help out in the village. So thank you all very much. And thank you for your efforts to come forward.
Before we move on,
Charlie, if you'd like to step forward, you can join the council. You will have to sign a piece of paper. What you'll sign it away, you just need to read the small print before.
No, I complete the small print afterwards.
So just to confirm what Charlie's having to sign. So when a councillor actually is elected to the council, they have to sign what's called a declaration of acceptance of office. So it basically says, having been elected to the office of councillor of Brent Knoll Parish Council, I declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. And then that's signed and dated by the newly elected councillor and also by the clerk. So.
Now, one thing I will say, and also to make sure we complete the legalities, because Jonathan Rees is not here, he obviously can't sign the declaration of office. So I'll make sure he signs it at the earliest opportunity. So probably I'll try and get to see him if I can in the next week or so to get him to sign it. But as long as he signs it before the next meeting, because he can't sit on the council until he signs it. So he will need to come the next meeting having signed the documentation. Just so that
if it helps, though, I live 4 doors down from him, so if I can get him to sign it.
I ought to see him sign it. It has to be written by a clerk. Sorry about that. Thanks.
The other thing just to mention is there will be a couple of other forms, or at least another form that has to be done by both councillors, which is the declarations of interest. So Owen will supply those for you to be able to go through and see what it is that you need to put in it.
They're very straightforward, really. But if there's any problems filling it in or signing it, I'll certainly help you with that.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move on to the next item, which is planning.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay. Next item then is clerk's report and correspondence matters.
I haven't got any correspondence. The only item I just want to raise, which is a sort of personal issue really, and that is that on the 29th of July, I should be being operated on. So I shan't be in action for the council for about 3 weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks in August, which just happened to be quite a fortuitous time because we don't have many meetings in August. So that makes life fairly straightforward from that point of view. But if we do have to have provisional meetings at all during August, Hazel Brinton from Barrow will sit in the chair and make sure proceedings carry on as normal. And her and I will obviously be in contact as and when that situation arises. But at least, it is August, which is the quietest time of the year for
to mention Hazel Brinton is clerk of both Berrow and Green, and a very experienced clerk for many years, so I think that was in safe hands.
Yes.
Okay, surgery report. This one falls to me today. So we actually have 5 people come off to surgery. Various issues were raised relating to the speed watch, and particularly speeding in Burton Row. It was reported actually when there were the road closures the other day. They had over 500 cars passing a period of an hour going down Burton Row. So, and caught quite a lot that were speeding, so they have quite a long list that they're sending off to the police. We also had raised with us issues relating to drainage in Cedar Close, and the issues that were caused by the flooding that took place with the gravel that came down in the winter. We also had a report back from a resident relating to National Grid, and a bit of an update. You'll remember that we had the explosion. The actual thing blew up the transformer box at the top, you remember, a little while ago, and National Grid have been sorting that out. We have now been advised that National Grid will be replacing the transformer box, which is there currently. Apparently it's going to be a slightly smaller transformer box on a single pole rather than a double pole, and if you look across the road, there is the same thing has been done at number 111. At the moment you can see both are in place. There's both the single and double. The double will obviously be removed, but that's what they're going to end up doing at the end of the green. That will be starting work at the end of this, or later part of this week, and will be done before the end of this month. So it should all then be hopefully up and running, and the hole will be filled in at the top of the green as well. Other than that, I don't think there was anything else I need to report back from surgery. So that then brings us on to the working groups and anything on footpaths.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anything from highways?
Going back to footpaths.
Yeah, Colin.
Please. The old SOPs, I think, have cleared a lot of the path around by the baker's house towards the water tanks, but Bristol Water need to do their bit along the side. That is bad, but the old SOPs part is not that bad.
Just contact Bristol Water and ask them if they can do their stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else on footpaths? Anything on highways?
No, nothing.
Okay. Who was on the village green? Amanda.
Oh,
Both by the sounds of it. Okay. We'll go with Amanda first, then we'll come to
You're
Colin.
July. You're July.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Basically the grass is really nice and short and tidy. Looks really, really good. All the perimeters are fine. The grass is great. The only problems that really stick out like a sore thumb is the harass fencing in the top corner, which I know has already been reported as a problem, but it's not even secured to the fence, so there are definitely kids going the other side of it, because I took out quite a lot of rubbish from the other side of it, and obviously there's big holes and stuff, and there's a sign there saying don't come in here because it's dangerous, but it's facing inwards, not outwards, so you have to go into the compound, you're not supposed to be in to read it. There's also up in that, along from that fence line, the green side, there are some quite big holes that have come up. I don't know if it's something to do with the tree roots or something, but there are some quite big holes. There's also the surface around the roundabout, which I think most people know is horrendous. There's quite a large proportion of it in the hedge behind, well it was, I've taken some of it out and tried to patch it back up again, but where the bench that was behind the mugger was changed to the perimeter fence,
Yes.
behind that bench there's quite a lot of big pieces of surface that have come from out round by the roundabout. So I actually have taken quite a lot of it and tried to jigsaw it back in again, because that's worse than it being cracked, obviously, because now that's a proper trip hazard. And then where, going down through the middle of the green, as most people are aware, there's a big gutter opening up. That, I think, where the ground is shrinking and pulling back, is probably contributing to the surface problem around the roundabout. because as the ground is coming this way, it's pulling, obviously, I think it's opened up the cracks, because you can see down through the surface the concrete slabs, and they look like they're moving. I mean, there's obviously something fairly major has got to be done there, but I don't know whether this, because the new patches that were done have held and look good.
Right.
So, but there is a big problem there. And the other problem that if we shut the roundabout, it's kind of the only thing that the tiny tots can use really. And I know that because we use it, but it's there's something going on there, and obviously kids are picking up pieces, or somebody is, and throwing it in the hedge. And there's also the graffiti is still in place on the slide and stuff. I think that was all really, that might be enough. Yeah, temporary toilet's fine. I had a look in there, looks all right. But yeah, but I know there's some planned work for the surface in general in the autumn, but.
Okay, I think if the council are in agreement, I mean, I'll come and have a look at the surface with you, because I think if that's as much of it has come up as it sounds like it is, we will have to take the roundabout out of commission.
I know, like we did before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we lifted it off physically to stop it going around. But
Thing is, we fenced that area off, didn't we, to stop it? Because
But to be honest, if we just fence it,
I know
they'll
they
go
stop
through the
right
fence
over it.
anyway.
They'll
So
go through the fence.
our council are happy that we basically take another look at that. If there is a safety issue, we actually arrange to have a roundabout lifted off and immobilised.
I think we're going to have to get hold of the surface people anyway,
Yes.
because there are big issues there. But they're there and not on other parts, which makes me think it's because of the whole the movement from the water situation.
I think also, to be honest, once the safety surfaces start to go, and you can get your fingers in them and start picking at them, then it
Exactly,
starts
it's
getting
too much of a temptation. Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have a look at that, immobilise it if we need to, and at the same time we'll start looking at getting some quotes for what we need to do in terms of safety surface to make it, because we can't have it in a position.
There was one more thing as well. I visited several times during the month, and there's a terrific amount of rubbish on the green in general, although the bins are largely empty. And I don't know if we could maybe get a couple of other signs further up, like towards the play equipment, just sort of reminding people that there are litter bins.
Okay. Anybody else got anything else on the green? Could I also ask that maybe we could drop a note back to the school just to thank them for how they've left them?
Yeah,
because they had their sports day on,
Yeah.
and you'd never know they've been there apart from the odd line.
Yes.
So they've left it beautifully. So, okay.
There's also worth saying about the school is when they asked if they could use it, they did a very, very swift risk assessment as well. They were very, very efficient. I mean, they came back to me within a couple of days and did a full risk assessment. I wish everybody else had used the green would do the same thing actually, because it made it very safe, because I was able to put that on file, so if there were any incidents it was easy to address it. So good for the school really.
Okay. Board and staffing group, I don't believe have met.
No.
Buildings working group have had a meeting.
Do you want to just briefly?
Yeah.
The Buildings Working Group met last week, which is obviously Malcolm, Colin, Bob, and myself. We met with Paul Martin, our architect, and also a couple of members of the shop. And the idea of that meeting really was to iron out some of the outstanding issues that we have with the shop in terms of internal fit-outs and so on. I think we managed to resolve most of the issues that were outstanding, and if not, we've gone forward with a plan to do so. And then Paul also then took up with Ashley Baker the build so far, so we knew exactly how much our first payment should be, which is now due early in July. And obviously I'll come on to that later because it's an item on the agenda for that particular discussion. But yes, it was an updated meeting which we will have every month. So Paul will meet with Ashley, the builder, on a monthly basis, and we will have a meeting with a couple of members of the shop and our buildings working group, and an update fully on where we are. Paul will issue some minutes from that meeting because he's writing the minutes. I wasn't. And when we have those minutes, I'll certainly circulate them to all the people that need to have them in front of them. In fact, it'll be circulated to the whole council actually.
Okay. Shop working group, there hasn't been a specific meeting of. No new policies and updates this month. Somerset Council know that I'm going to keep my report very brief tonight, bearing in mind what's going on at the moment politically. So, all I would say is the financial position at Somerset is still very similar to what it has been. We are in the process of consultation on compulsory redundancies now. We'll be able to hopefully give an update on what that position is in about a month's time, because whether that consultation will have happened. But I'm happy to take any questions from any members on Somerset Council matters. Okay. As I say, next time hopefully something a little bit fuller. But financial report. Payments list, statutory approvals, variable payments.
Just for Charlie's benefit really, we have two types of payments. We have statutory payments, which are agreed in April of each year, and which take us through the whole of the year. So they're things that we don't really want to be bringing to the meeting every time, which are statutory payments that we need to make. So there are things like staffing costs, national insurance issues, the contract for the village, the play inspection for the village green, I think that's probably, and also the SID movement contract we have. So those things we agree in April.
What's a SID movement?
SID is the speed indicator device.
Oh, right.
Sorry, we mustn't talk jargon. SID, speed indicator device. We have a contract with Nichols Facilities, and they move it regularly around the village with the ANPR, which is the number plate. They're statutory payments which we agree in April each year, and then that takes us right the way through. And then alternatively, then we have variable payments, which are those one-off payments which come in during the year, which we don't know about until they come in.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how this payments are split. So need a resolution for the statutory payments first of all, please. If we could just agree to making those.
All those in favour, please show.
Okay.
That's clearly carried.
And the variable payments, you'll notice on there, one of the statutory payments is our payroll provider, which up to now we've been paying on a monthly basis. But they've changed all their internal systems to make it easier for themselves, because they don't charge a great deal. And they would now rather have it on an annual basis rather than monthly. So I've cancelled the standing order for them from now. And then this payment of £107 takes us through to next April. Okay, so it's much easier. So it's just a one-off payment, and then that covers us right the way through the year. So, and that's the first thing. The second thing is our quarterly office expenses and allowances for the period between April and June. If anybody requires to see the detail of that, then they're very welcome to see it. It's very much available, so you can just tell me, and I will email it to you. So you can see exactly how it breaks down.
Okay. Can I have a proposal that we pay those to them, please? And under again. All those in favour, please show. That's clearly carried.
On the other financial matters, I sent a budget update to everybody so they can see how we're going. I know that Colin last year you were very keen that we should update on a regular basis. So we've now received the June one, which again doesn't tell us, as the year goes on, it tells us a lot more because we get a lot more things on there. But at the moment, it doesn't tell us a great deal, and it's almost impossible to forecast at the end of the year at the moment. But that will change as we go into the autumn. But if there's any questions on that, certainly Charlie, I will send you a copy of that as well, so you can have a look at it at your leisure.
That's reading.
And Jonathan, of course, will get a copy of that. So if there's any questions, I'm very happy to take them. The other thing is, because we're coming into August, we don't have a main meeting in August, which means that the two sections of payments that we've just agreed can't be agreed normally in August. So what we normally do is ask the council to give us permission, chairman and myself, to make any payments that are required during August. If there was something that was particularly unusual, we would probably do a retrospective payment and bring it to the September meeting. I think it's unlikely in August, because normally it was very quiet. so that you're aware of that. So we need your, sorry.
No.
Will that work when you're out in August?
Well, basically, I will set up all the payments that need setting before I go
Right,
off,
okay.
to make life easier for the temporary clerk. And hopefully nothing will happen between that time and the time I'm back in the office again, which will be a couple of weeks later. So I'll try and tie everything as tightly as I possibly can. And if there were to be something which I was expecting as a one-off, I'll obviously alert Bob and we'll try and do it some other way. But we'll deal with it. But worth mentioning.
So we need to have a resolution.
Just a resolution to make those
Proposal for
those
that.
payments.
Malcolm, and all those in favour, please show.
Thank you.
That's carried.
That's it on finance.
Okay, so matters of consideration takes us on to the shop bill, and the first section is the PWLB loans, general finance and payments to contractors.
Basically, the PWLB loans, we've done two drawdowns now, 40 odd thousand, and they're now sitting in our reserve finance, earning a bit of interest until we need to use them. The next one won't be due now until I think it's September, so we get a bit of a breathing space. And then September and October, the two final payments draw down. Obviously, you can see the build coming on. You can see the demolishing. You can see the footings having gone in. The drainage is being completed, as far as I know. And the payments to the contractor for the first time are due at the end of June. They're now imminent, first part of July. And we have a £45,000 first payment, which has been calculated properly by Paul Martin, our architect. So he's done a lot of work with Ashley to make sure that what Ashley's charging us for is correct, and everything that's been covered in the work has got evidence for. So it's a great thing about having a professional guy like Paul. It means that we're able to use his facilities to make sure we're paying the right amount at the right time. That 45,000 does include VAT, and the VAT we will be trying to claim back in that first tranche. So as soon as we pay the invoice, I will then reclaiming back the VAT element of that, so that we maximise our cash flow for the council. So I need to have from you an authority to make that first payment of £45,000 to Ashley Baker. So,
Proposed by Jane.
Jane,
All those in favour that we pay that, please show.
thank you.
It's unanimous.
Anything else?
In August, do we need to have a similar authorisation for making the August payment?
We probably won't. Oh, yes, we probably will. Yes, we will. So perhaps we ought to make a separate resolution so we cover the old payment with well thought of.
So again, the process would have to be the same in that Ashley will put in what he wants to charge for, Paul will then have to check that the work has actually been done, and then he will authorise the amount to be paid. But obviously, if we can have a proposal of that again we can follow that same procedure. Colin?
On the basis that it is certified by
Yes.
the architect, yes.
Okay, so it's proposed by Colin. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. Build update, Paul Martin matters, I think we've covered.
I think we've largely covered that, actually.
Yeah. Lease and legal update.
I spoke to, I had a strange conversation. I'm driving in this evening. Charles Fleming rang me. Awful mobile signal, but I think I managed to get more or less a gist of what he was saying. Charles Fleming has been trying to get from Clark Wilmore, who are the solicitors for the shop management group, a formal approval of the lease information that we submitted to them back along. I know the shoppers, I believe, have done their bit. I think they've submitted any suggestions or alterations, amendments or whatever, but he still hasn't had this formally approved by the solicitors for the shop. So he's going to put pressure on them, because we decided that perhaps between now and say the end of July, it would be a good idea, if there are any issues, for the building working group, which is Colin, Malcolm, myself and Bob, to meet with Charles Fleming either here or in Burnham-on-Sea, just to cover off any particular areas that need sort of underlining, so that we can obviously come back to the council and share any concerns that we would have on the lease. I don't anticipate there will be any. As far as I can tell, what the shop approved and sent back to Clark, Wilmot and Clark, were very much what we had set in motion in the first place. I don't hear there's any great discrepancy. So if that's the case, I can't really see any real issues. But obviously we wait to see the documents when we get them.
Any comments or questions from members?
No, why
Yeah,
is
sure.
it delay?
Uh, I've got one or two ideas that might be, but I don't think they're official, and I certainly wouldn't want to share them this meeting. But certainly, yeah, I think it's all solvable. It's all solvable. You know, solvable. We can get it sorted. You know, Charles is on the case from our point of view. Solicitors are notoriously slow. I mean, they really are. They drag their heels very often on a lot of things. And you try buying a house, and you know exactly how long they can take to come back on things. So hopefully, my guess is we get this all completely signed, sealed, and completed before the September meeting. So we might have to have a one-off meeting with the council if there's things to be approved. We might have to have a special one-off. So if that's the case, then we'll call.
Okay. Colin.
On going to the fourth item, any other matters to be considered, I would just like to raise my concern and disappointment. If I could just explain to the council what's happening with the build, and it's something that I feel as a building group we can't make the decision ourselves, and I should point it out to you, is that in our design we spent an awful lot of money and time giving a plastered ceiling with lighting. We had to have a plastered ceiling in order to provide an air test for the building, which is part of building regulations. So what we had effectively given the shop was a ceiling just like this, smoke detectors, lighting, all finished. The shop now want to put in a suspended ceiling underneath our finished ceiling. And they want to put this in during our build. And what this does, it causes problems, because we're going to seal the building anyway and plaster it in order to provide an air test. They want to come in and do their own installation of a suspended ceiling during our construction cycle. I think that's wrong. We should not allow that. We should give them the building that was designed and set up and tested properly. And my view is that as a building regulation group or team, we should make this point to the shop, that we will give you the building as we have designed it, as Paul Martin has properly constructed it along with Ashley, and then the shop put in their suspended ceiling later. It's nothing to do with our build. And if we go ahead, I want to make it clear I'm totally opposed to it. Totally. You lose 6 inches of the ceiling, it's unnecessary. It's a waste of shareholder funds. That's my opinion.
I understand. I mean, the only thing I would say is that at the conclusion of the buildings working group, the shop were asked to go away and come back with some further information in terms of liaising with the architect and Ashley, the builder. So I think we've got to give them the opportunity to do that. How we move forward from there, I think we have that discussion. But as yet, there was a request placed with the shop for them to follow a route, which I think we at least need to let them have that opportunity.
I just want to make that quite clear. I am totally opposed to it, and I would like the council's opinion as to what they feel about it, because it is disturbing the works that are being done properly in accordance with building regs and testing to show that the building is being constructed properly. I just think it's a complete waste of time.
Jane?
Can I just ask, what is the point of a suspended ceiling?
I mean, it's part of the design the shop have put forward for their fitting out. I mean, it's difficult for us, it's not our decision in terms of telling them what they should be doing in terms of their fit out. We do need to make sure that their fit out doesn't interfere with the build process, and that's something that is being discussed at the moment to make sure that doesn't happen. It's difficult for the council to make comment on it because they don't have all the information in front of them that the shop have had, and they certainly don't have the information in front of them that the working group have had. So I think it's difficult for other members to come in with a meaningful contribution without having that information behind them. And again, the only way we can start to get into that is if I open this meeting up and then ask people at the shop to address us with what they think should be happening. I don't really think this is the forum for us to be doing that. I think we will make sure that it is addressed by the buildings group when they next meet, and we need to be able to talk that through with the shop. As I say, the shop have been requested. The shop have been requested to come back to us with information, and I think we've got to give them the opportunity to do that. Okay.
Just on the shop boxing, I see that there's a number of questions, a letter that's come in to the shop a little while ago. Who's using what plans for the fit out and stuff. So there just seems to be some differing opinions going on. I trust that the committee have got hold of that and sorting that out. Yeah.
Yes, I mean that was discussed at this last building meeting group and the previous one, and there was a discrepancy between the two sets of plans that we were working to. That has been addressed, so that is not an issue now. There are further issues relating to positioning of disabled access sinks and stuff that needed to be resolved, which we've explained now to the shop committee why we were doing what we were doing, because it seemed odd to be saying why do you need to add extra sinks that you may not need, but they have to be done to meet the regulations. The shop now understand that's why we're doing it, so I think they've accepted that part. We've looked at making sure that we can accommodate as best we can what the shop were looking for in terms of access to their storeroom, which hasn't changed the fundamentals of the layout of the shop, but it's just made it easier for them to operate. We are addressing those issues through these working groups, and I think we're getting there. It's just a question of we need to make sure it's all in place before we start doing physical work, because what you don't want to do is do something and then have to undo it, because that's when the costs start.
That was my concern.
Yeah.
Who's directing the business?
Ultimately, we have made it very clear that the only people who are directing the builders is Paul, our architect, and the people who are instructing Paul are us, the council. And the shop are aware that that's the conduit that it works, but we do want to work with the shop, because there's no point in us just not, if we can do that.
So I was just going to say, going back to the comment earlier about the suspended ceiling, obviously if that's a request by the shop, I'm assuming the funding for that would come out of the fitting of the shop, not
Correct.
our building.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they're not asking us to pay for that.
Right.
The issue, as Colin
It's just the
raised,
complication of when
it's
it's
the
done.
timing as to how you do it, so that what we don't end up is two lots of people trying to be on site at the same time,
And
or
also the point of
alternatively,
if there's even...
them having to undo stuff that we've already done, which
Yeah.
would be crazy for
Yeah.
both parties.
And Colin's point is correct. The building will have to be enveloped first,
Mhm.
and then you'll have to fit it out. If you fit it out during the envelope, then you might not pass your qualification.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any update on ANPR?
ANPR was an interesting topic, isn't it? This is a piece of kit that was supposed to be up and running smoothly. 2 years ago we started discussions about the ANPR. We have moved to some extent a bit further in as much as it's now installed. We have, both Bob and I think Colin as well, have been involved in discussing with the police, the guy who deals with this at Avon and Somerset, about what we do with the data that we get from it, because at the moment we don't distribute the data anywhere because it's confidential stuff. I hold the data from the guy who does the SID movement and the ANPR movement. I hold the data, but I'm not allowed to send it anywhere at the moment. Now I have written, I did have a fairly optimistic note from Trevor Simpson a while back when he said, oh, there's a chap who can help you, as I forget what his name was now, something in D, I think. And I wrote to him and said, I've got all this data, what do you want me to do with it? Politely. And he hasn't come back to me yet. So at the end of the day, I've got all this data, we've got a wonderful ANPR unit which is operational, but we haven't got a joined up connection at the moment between the two.
Didn't we have a new police commissioner? Why don't we just send it to him?
That's the next
I guess. We will.
My apologies.
Yes.
Keep up with current events.
Soon.
No, that's all right.
Welcome to 2024.
I was just going to say, she said just now about the speed watch. They obviously send their data in to the police, and people get a letter as a result of speed watch. So, could we not do, see where
That's
that goes?
one of the suggestions that's been made.
Is that?
But at the moment, the data handling that Owen has had to sign up for does not entitle him to give that data
He
to the speed
can't.
watch group.
Yes, I
If
see.
the
what
police
you mean.
instruct us to do that, we can then give it to them and they can pass it on. But the big difference is, of course, what we'll be passing on is pictures of cars, the photograph to go with the speeding thing. So it's just that we need to make sure that we're not breaching the licence that we had to sign up to in terms of our data handling.
To be honest, we had one incident where there was a repeat offender, which was going through the unit on a quite regular basis. It wasn't a tractor actually. And this was sent to me, this information from our SID mover, and said, can we do something about this? And I had a word with the local police officer, and she informed me that there was nothing I could do about it at the moment. So until we get some instructions, I can't do anything.
This is because the speed watch just take information down, and they're obviously the ANPR taking pictures, so that's what the crucial thing is, presumably.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, this was, as you'll remember, this was a trial to be run here for the police to see how it operates, to see whether they want to do it elsewhere. One of their concerns is how they handle the data, and the fact is they haven't got their data handling sorted yet. So we're up and running. It is still out there, and it is recording that information that is being held and will be passed on as soon as we can.
So it's an ongoing issue, I'm afraid, but it needs a resolution. Not least of which because, okay, we've got a massive grant to purchase it, but we still use council funds to purchase the remaining part of it, and that needs to be addressed.
Okay. ENF, flood and groundwork consideration behind the church and the flood action group. Obviously David isn't here tonight, but just to give you a quick update, David and myself met with a representative from the FWAG, which I can never remember what they stand for, but they're an organisation that's involved with flood management and agricultural land. So,
What was their initial address?
FWAG.
Floodwatch Action Group.
Thank you very much. So, we met with him because basically what had happened, we had spoken to the drainage board and they said, sorry guys, it's not us, it's too high up the knoll, but you might like to talk to the local flood authority, which is Somerset Council. So we spoke to Somerset Council, who said talk to Flag, and they came out and met us on site. He walked the path with us, went up the knoll, was looking, he had a plan showing where various water courses are on the knoll and where they know water flows. The next stage is that David is going to arrange to talk to 2 or 3 of the landowners whose land is affected by this. Because what FLAG would like us to do is they believe the best way of dealing with this is what they call slowing the flow and making the water come down less dramatically and do less damage when it comes. So they have a number of suggestions which they have come up with that they think would be worth going with, but you need obviously the landowner's permission. They also have access to applying for grant funding from the Somerset Rivers Authority, which is the one that takes the money out of the council tax, again to help reduce flooding. So a number of the things that we would be looking at are projects they say they should be able to get funding for, and they have said that they would help us actually do the applications for the grants as well. So plan A at the moment, as I say, the guy's gone away to draw up some suggestions as to what could be done. We've got to talk to the landowners to say, would you in principle be interested? And then if they say yes, then FLAG would want to meet with the landowners and say, this is what we'd like to be looking at. And then we can hopefully move things forward.
Is it
Charlie.
impacting the landowners?
So at the moment, the flooding hasn't caused them the problem.
Okay.
The flooding is causing people a problem further down.
I guess that's the difficulty, trying to sway the landowner.
Yes. I mean, I'm hopeful at least a couple of landowners have in the past been very positive about working with projects, so if we can get as much of it funded as we can through grant, that will obviously help as well. So as soon as we've got some more information, we'll bring it back. But it is moving forward.
Will the plans say? Will the plans also help the top of the knoll and the footpath? Because that becomes the riverway, that washes out, and that affects the landowners because everybody climbs the fence, doesn't it?
So we got, in effect, where they were looking to start working from was about halfway down that top field. Because when you get down to the bottom, there's a
Big
real
trough.
muddy pond,
Yeah.
and they're looking to talk to the landowners there, and basically from everywhere from that point down to the church.
So that will help certainly one of the landowners.
Yes.
won't it?
Yeah. Okay. Dog waste.
Yeah, this was something that none of you raised.
Yeah, this is because a couple of people have said, well, I've had a few conversations with people in the village that it come up, and I've been asked to bring this to the council. There is a huge problem with dog mess, pavements, verges and whatever around the village. We know there are a lack of dog bins. We also know that there's no point in asking the council for help, as in the Somerset Council. So what we were wondering is if there's any way that we can implement some sort of dog mess patrol whereby we could apply for some sort of, I don't know, legal standing that we could take over from the council who would have done it once upon a time, that we could walk around and if we see someone fouling, we can issue a fine and raise some revenue and stop the mess at the same time. Because, I mean, there are real hot spots. Middle Street's bad, Bodies Lane's bad, outside the school is horrendous. There are some really, really bad areas, and I just think that if we were allowed to do it, we could actually raise some money and keep our streets cleaner at the same time. But it's if there's a way that we could take this forward. Because at the moment,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, there is nothing to stop. Somebody fouls the pavement and say, a person, I've seen people go up to them and say, your dog's just messed there, and go, what are you going to do about it? And, you know, there is nothing to stop them. There's no deterrent, there are no sanctions in place for foulers, basically.
Yeah, I must admit, I don't know whether there is the ability to do that. The only thing we could do is we could ask Somerset Council whether that is something that a parish council could do. I mean, they've been devolving other services
Exactly,
to councils.
yeah.
Whether this is something that they can devolve, I don't know. We can ask the question and then we can decide whether we wish to move forward with it.
Do you want to
I think it
devolve
would
your
be-
dog muck?
Who wants to do the job? In the meantime, photos and then show them.
Yeah, again, you will be a bit careful with...
Doing it.
Yeah. Well, we might be able to, like, for instance...
As council members are doing that, that's...
Oh, I didn't suggest.
Yeah.
If,
I mean, Amanda's talking about people seeing people.
If we were say we were allowed to do it, we'd put up warning signs saying this council operates a no dog muck zone or whatever, and if you are caught or you don't pick up your dog mess and dispose of it appropriately, you will be subject to a fine of blah. And then if somebody's seen doing it, we would be allowed to say, you've just done that, and here's your, like a traffic warden.
yeah.
Yeah.
So our
Fixed
council
penalty.
happy that in the first instance we write to the council to ask if this is something that can be done by a parish or town.
Yeah.
And then we'll report that back as soon as we know.
And we would say what alternatives if they immediately say
Yeah.
no.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
good point. Yeah, what do you suggest we do to?
Okay.
I'll ask other parish clerks as well, any ideas they
Bad
can
odours.
Yeah.
The same signs. People just like
Signs,
ignore them.
yeah.
It's definitely got worse
Yeah.
over the time, hasn't it? Yeah.
Okay, we'll certainly do that. That brings us to that's the report. Jane, anything you want to bring up? Amanda?
No.
Melina? Charlie, just let you know.
Well,
So,
that's it.
so basically, at the end of the meeting, we will go around and ask if members have anything they want to report, because we can't decide anything in a meeting that isn't on our agenda.
Okay.
So if things are raised under matters of report, they basically will get put on the next agenda for us to deal with. In the run-up to the meeting, when Owen does his agendas, he does a draft agenda, sends it out to members, which gives members the opportunity to raise something then that they can put on the meeting, so that we can then deal with it in the. But as I say, it's just something you can't. You're not supposed to make a decision on something that's not listed, because otherwise we could have something really controversial, not put it on the agenda, and then stick it through very quietly at a meeting when no one turns up to see what's happening.
Which apparently we're not allowed to do.
No, we're
We have
not.
a vote though, we can do that.
Anything else? Okay. Hannah.
Yes, we're still getting a problem with erratic postal deliveries.
Okay. We can put that on the next one.
The postman.
The postman's on the horizon.
Okay, well, that's next time. Colin?
Yeah, first of all, apologies for my late attendance this morning. I'm sorry. Second point is, it's very nice to see Jane back, and I hope you're now fully recovered and back to health. Well done. Other than that, nothing.
I'm looking for Jane for inspiration.
Nothing from me. Owen, anything from you?
No, nothing from me. No.
In which case, that brings us to the end of our meeting. As you'll see from the agenda, the next scheduled meeting is the 4th of September. We don't generally have a meeting in August, but if we require one, we will obviously let you know. Thank you all very much, and the meeting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you.